Starmer is actually more unpopular than Sunak, Johnson, and even Liz Truss at her worst. So I think, and that's according to Ipsos polls, and he's actually the worst if you go back 50 years. He has the lowest approval rating of any PM. But I think there's some really interesting polling from More in Common this week where they actually force people to pair leaders up against each other. And Starmer does okay. He beats Farage, he beats Polanski, but Kemi Badenoch does very well, and she was preferred to all of the other party leaders.
Tom, let's talk about the government and Keir Starmer and Peter Mandelson and so on, because the scandal continues to reverberate. The Times has learned that the investigation into the relationship between Epstein and Mandelson is going to go back 25 years to when Tony Blair was in office. The Education Minister, Georgia Gould, who is herself the daughter of an important Blairite figure, the pollster and strategist Philip Gould, spoke to Kate McCann and Stig Abel on Times Radio Breakfast this morning.
I do know Peter Mandelson well. He was a friend of my father's, and I've known him for years, but I have been profoundly shocked and saddened by what has emerged over the last few months. And I think what his behaviour is indefensible, and all of us, I think, have been deeply pained by it.
Well, where are we now? Tom Peck writes in the Times today, day 2 of the stag, the best man's gone AWOL, one of the ushers has got the last train home, and some Scottish bloke no one had met before is in A&E with life-changing injuries. Meanwhile, Patrick Maguire writes, Starmer is a passenger on the driverless Docklands Line light railway, winding his way through London to a destination once preordained by Morgan McSweeney, now by his rivals on the left. Tom, neither of these metaphors seem terribly positive.
No, I mean, I personally quite like driving the DLR, but no, I'm sure. I think that there's a real sense here that this is a slightly rudderless government. And I think what's fascinating is this massive job that's underway to sort of unravel the tentacles of Peter Mandelson over 25 years of government. I mean, this goes all the way back to 1999 when he was Northern Ireland Secretary. In May 2002, we know that he brokered this meeting between Epstein and Blair, calling Epstein young and vibrant. Then, of course, we've got the really important stuff around the financial crisis, the big question of whether he leaked important, potentially secret, market-sensitive information around the 2008 financial crisis. So there's a lot to unravel here. I think what's important to remember as well, the reason and people at home might be a bit fed up with the sort of the endless stories day after day about Mandelson and Epstein, but I think it's important to say these are massive files. There's so much stuff to go through with all of this. I mean, with the DOJ stuff that was released, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of data, loads and loads of files, and even with the latest tools in AI and journalism and so on, it's taken journalists all around the country, all around the world, many, many weeks to go through everything. So I think, the government now has to look through 25 years of government emails, and it's not going to be done quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard enough work to look through 25 years of my own emails, let alone every email sent in government. I mean, where do they begin doing this? Can the government do this internally? Will they need to bring in some kind of sort of, top-notch software contractors to build systems and database? I mean, this just sounds like huge. This sounds like sort of, sounds like building a palace.
Yeah, I think in theory, a lot of the software should be there already. They say that dozens of civil servants are working on this mammoth operation, it's being described as. But yeah, I think it's going to take a very, very long time. And, searching just the DOJ Epstein files, Mandelson is mentioned 6,000 times. And that's only from one side. So I think, it's going to take a very long time indeed.
Well, in further political developments, yesterday, Lord Doyle, Sir Keir Starmer's former Director of Communications, was suspended from Labour for lying over his links with a convicted sex offender, a different one. This has all come to light because of the reporting of our colleague Gabriel Pogan from the Sunday Times. Doyle, he's not a household name like Mandelson, but this is still a damaging story so soon after the Mandelson revelations for the Prime Minister. It begins to look like a blind spot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's you could say he's unlucky, but then again, why do all these scandals just keep on happening? I think politics and public opinion are in a really interesting point at the moment, because obviously we're more than 3 years from an election, and yet the polls are absolutely dreadful for Keir Starmer. His approval rating is minus 47%,
wow.
And that's sort of having bottomed out recently. And I think that sort of politics in general, in a nutshell, can be described as we hate everyone, but especially the guy in charge. And there's a debate as to whether that's what we're seeing with Starmer is the fact that we're pretty fed up with all politicians, or whether he is uniquely bad. And I think it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, how different is that from where we were in the sort of the fag end of the Rishi Sunak government, for example?
So Starmer is actually more unpopular than Sunak, Johnson, and even Liz Truss at her worst. So I think, and that's according to Ipsos polls, and he's actually the worst if you go back 50 years. He has the lowest approval rating of any PM. But I think there's some really interesting polling from More in Common this week where they actually force people to pair leaders up against each other. And Starmer does okay. He beats Farage, he beats Polanski, but Kemi Badenoch does very well, and she was preferred to all of the other party leaders. So look, I think a lot of the polling is hypothetical at the moment, but they don't make great reading for Starmer.
Yeah, well, it will obviously be coming back to this story a bit later.